I'm Lex Levy, and this is Ancient Odysseys. We are back at the Giza Plateau, and we have an amazing adventure ahead. We're here at the Valley Temple to the Central Pyramid, and we're going to investigate. Let's go. It's a single block. Welcome back. I'm Lex Levy, and this is Ancient Odysseys.
We'll go this way.
I'm Lex Levy, and this is Ancient Odysseys. We are back at the Giza Plateau, and we have an amazing adventure ahead. In today's episode, we will explore a rare survivor of the ancient past. The stunning Valley Temple of the Central Pyramid.
See at the end of the episode, we just had a private, the tail of the Sphinx.
Here we are looking into the highly eroded Sphinx enclosure, and I am pointing at the access into the ass of the Sphinx. The enclosure around the axis was recently constructed. And this is an interesting vantage point of the Sphinx, where you can see its tail. Directly in front of the Sphinx, at the east, is the Sphinx Temple, which is closed off to the public. To the right is the Valley Temple to the Central Pyramid, which we will explore today. This image was taken in 1913, a year after Uwe Holscher published his excavations on Khafres temples. Holscher was limited to only removing the sand from the east facade of the temple, which exposed the two entrances. The remaining south, north, and west sides remain covered in sand. The Sphinx can be clearly made out, with a fair amount of sand removed from its front. Various old images of the Sphinx survive, showing the sand at different levels. One of the bigger excavations by Caviglia in 1816 through 1819 exposed the front of the Sphinx and made important discoveries. The discovery of the Valley Temple itself is connected to the excavations of the Sphinx. Marriott tells us that in 1853, clearance work was undertaken around the Sphinx. It was during this clearance that it was noticed that two large mud brick walls were erected along the south and west walls of the Sphinx enclosure, thought to keep the sand out of the structure. He further tells us that by following the southern brick wall, believed to have been built by Thutmose IV, step by step they came across the foundations for the Valley Temple, which had been completely unknown until that time. Geoffrey and I were just exploring the top of Gibble Gibble. In Holscher's photo here, we are looking at the temple's northeast corner. The depth of the material which he had to remove in order to expose the east facade can be judged by the debris on the right of the image, which buried the yet unknown Sphinx Temple. Holscher's publication on the Valley Temple is the primary resource on the structure, though prior to his work, the interior of the temple was accessible to other explorers after Marriott's excavations, such as Piazzi Smith in 1865 and Flinders Petrie in 1880. In more modern times, Herbert Reich, along with the Italian scholars Miragiaglio and Rinaldi added some further details in the 1960s, while Lehner and Hawass attempted to bring things up to date in their 2017 publication, Giza and the Pyramids, where they suggested that the temple was built in two distinct phases. Generally, detailed data on the temple is somewhat lacking, with many areas off limits to tourists. Marriott unfortunately tells us little about his activities at the Valley Temple. Mark Lehner states, frustratingly, he published almost nothing about what he found inside the temple. Initially, the finance cost of the excavation started in September of 1853. However, the task at hand soon exhausted the first grant, and so a second, and then a third was requested. This third grant basically cleared 4/5 of the interior debris. However, a fourth grant was unsuccessful, and the clearing of the temple was suspended at about 1 meter above the temple floor. His fortune would change some 4 years later by order of Said Pasha, and work was resumed in the temple, and after a few days the floor of the temple was reached. Shortly after, the famous diorite statue of Khafre was found in a pit cut into the temple floor, and Marriott would lament, a few hundred francs more, and the statue of Khafre would today be at the Louvre Museum. This was not the only statue which was found, as he reports fragments of 8 other statues made of serpentine and diorite, 5 of which were inscribed with Khafre's name. He states, in short, the Valley Temple was decorated with at least 10 statues that can be attributed to the founder of the second pyramid. All were found either in the well or in its immediate surroundings. In 1865, Piazzi Smith would visit Giza and make some observations on the temple, as well as provide some early images of the structure. But we would have to wait until 1882 before we would see a planned drawing of the temple. A more detailed plan of the temple would shortly follow, courtesy of Petrie in 1883. Here we have Petrie's scaled drawing of the temple's interior. The top of the drawing is west, and the angled passage, top right, leads to the causeway. The 2 eastern entrances were not opened in Petrie's time. These would only be cleared by Holscher in 1910. The angled inclined passage from the causeway leads to a T-shaped pillared hall. Midway along the angled passage we have 2 doorways. One on the south gives access to a small chamber, sometimes referred to as the Porter's Lodge, while the north doorway gives access to a ramp which led to the temple roof. At the southwest corner of the pillared hall, we have a doorway which leads to 3 magazines. These magazines are 2-story, thus providing 6 long storage spaces. A doorway in the middle of the east wall of the pillared hall leads to a sizable vestibule, which had doorways at its south and north ends that led to the 2 entrances present on the temple's facade. In Petrie's time, the southern entrance hall was filled with sand, while the northern was partially cleared. Here we have a forced entrance by the magazines.
Alright, this is the western face of the Valley Temple of the Central Pyramid. Jeff pointed out this red granite feature here. An overlooked piece.
And the block above it is quartzite.
Oh, you're right.
So the conduit is red granite and the block above it is quartzite.
Let's see if we can get a closer look.
An interesting and often overlooked feature of this temple. It is a conduit piece. embedded in the western wall of the Valley Temple to the Central Pyramid. The conduit piece is made of red granite, and directly above it is a piece of quartzite. This granite block is one of the roof drains. Another would have been placed in the hole further along the wall. When it comes to constructing the temple, we have to consider its building sequence. We know the higher elements of the construction are on the eastern side of the temple, with each hall reducing in height as we head west, with the lowest hall being the double colonnade. There would have been various levels of roof, with the highest on the eastern facade, with each successive roof diminishing in height as we travel west. Each roof would discharge its water or fluid onto its adjacent lower roof, and the collective fluid would discharge through 2 granite channels in the temple's rear wall. The roof appears to be made of 2 layers, the first being of granite, and the second of limestone, which sealed to prevent water seepage, the best preserved part of the roof being over the magazines. Here we have a view of the roof looking west, and you can see where the ramp to the roof terminates and where the in situ drainage piece is found. The conduit or drainage piece that is found in the Valley Temple is very similar to the conduit or drainage piece that is embedded in the pavement of the Eastern Temple to the Central Pyramid.
There would have been another.
In this photo of Marriott's excavation, we get a good idea of the task at hand, and the amount of debris which had to be shifted. In this image by Piazzi Smith, taken in 1865, highlights the immense sea of sand and debris between the temple and the Central Pyramid. At this stage, the interior of the temple had been largely cleared. Piazzi Smith states, "Before us, now, is an immense excavation, showing at the depth of some 20 feet under the sand an enormous palace-like building in Cyclopean, almost Stonehengian architecture, and near 130 feet square. In the interior are ranges of square pillars, horizontal beams from pillar to pillar, and massive walls, all of polished red granite, while rising above and closing them in on every side are limestone walls, built of masses so huge, yet so well joined comparatively, and now so much weathered in horizontal streaks as to appear like portions of ancient cliff, or to give one the idea of the whole place having been built in an excavated hole like Campbell's tomb, only 15 times larger."
How you feeling, man?
You're photogenic.
Thank you, madam.
Shukran, Siddiqui. Ana من مصر. وأنت مع السلامة. Let's go this way. What do you think of today?
Awesome.
What's your favorite part?
Spending time with my lovely wife. That's how you do it, guys.
That's right. Oh, they have a whole to-do in this. You think that's a permanent structure?
May have something to do with the opening, official opening of the Grand Egyptian Museum.
Makes sense. This was constructed while we were gone in Japan. Oh, look. Base column. Oh, and alabaster floor. Calcite crystal. There's still a few pieces that remain. Oh, huge slab here. And an exquisite cornice piece. This would have been on the roof. And there's one glyph here that I remember. Part of a headdress. Lower Egypt. It looks like there would have been an entire section here. You can see the perimeter of limestone. Some mud brick here. Now this temple had a second level, and there was an access to the roof. You see this finished piece here?
This finished piece of stonework is a decorative cornice piece that would have adorned the top of the temple.
Look at this.
All right, so now
Here we have a section of a hieroglyph that I believe to be a portion of a royal crown. Here you see a part of the Deshret, the king of Lower Egypt crown.
let's start to discuss the function of the temple.
This is an incredible piece here. This would have aligned the roof. It's a cornice piece. It's like mud brick magazines. This may have been a part of a pillar, a column. This temple would have been cased. We don't know how many courses of red granite. This is the southern entrance of the Valley Temple. Okay, we're back at the Valley Temple, and this time it's open. Let's go explore. Take a look at this exquisite polygonal masonry made of red granite. You see how
In numerous places in the temple, we see granite blocks which appear to turn a corner. M&R would state, inspection of the walls and floors enabled us to discern that the blocks of granite were placed into position only after the faces, which came in contact with each other, had been smoothed, and, where necessary, cut to fit together, while the face intended to be seen was left rough. The smoothing of this face took place after the erection of the walls, and the thickness of the granite removed was considerable. Many corner blocks thus became L-shaped. This technique is not unique to the Valley Temple and can be found in other sites in different periods of Egyptian history. An example would be in the Middle Kingdom Temple at Qasr el-Saga.
this single block is rounded the corner, is joined. We're here at the Valley Temple to the Central Pyramid, and we're going to investigate. Come on, let's go. Look at this polygonal masonry. And you can hear the muezzin in the background. Look at the size of this block. Babe, would you sit next to this for perspective? It's a single block. And look how it rounds the corner. go inside. Now the inundated Nile would have met the Valley Temple here, and you can still see there's a subterranean water as there's foliage growing. The waves of the Nile would have been crashing. Boats would have docked here, harbored, to access the temple. And the Nile would have met right here, and boats could dock and access the temple. Now this is the Sphinx enclosure. Column. It's an in situ course of a granite casing.
This is Holscher's reconstruction of the temple's eastern facade. Marks found on the pavement in front of the temple have led to the suggestion that Sphinx once flanked each doorway. Other markings suggest a small pavilion was also built against the middle of the eastern facade.
Alabaster floor. We're now taking a peek in the Sphinx temple.
Huge piece of calcite right there.
Oh, you're right.
And
It's a massive block. Wow.
a piece of red granite up to the right. You can see that block in the floor. Right there.
Oh, I see it. You're right. Good eye. There's another big block of calcite. Alabaster. On the right is the Sphinx temple. You can see that they've lined up some of the red granite casing. And on the left, the Valley Temple to the Central Pyramid. You can see the in situ red granite casing. This polygonal masonry is made out of red granite. Ready?
We are looking into the northern entrance hall, with the doorway on the left giving access to the vestibule. The doorway passage inclines slightly to the higher floor of the vestibule. High up on the west wall is a sizable niche. Holzer states that at the southern entrance, which is similar and symmetrical to the northern, he would find large fragments of a monkey made of black granite. It is thought that large granite baboons occupied these two niches to greet the rising sun. The baboon is a manifestation of the ibis-headed god of wisdom, Thoth. Here we have the surviving inscriptions around the two eastern facade entrances. On the left is the surviving remnant from the southern entrance, while on the right is what is found at the northern entrance. Here I've deciphered the hieroglyphs. We have the House of Horus, or the goddess Hathor, and the word for love, Miri. At the southern entrance, we have Bastet, the feline or lion-headed goddess, and again, Miri, meaning love. Then we have Chiet, meaning eternity, enduring, everlasting. The two entrances appear to be assigned to Upper and Lower Egypt, with Hathor's cult being in Upper or Southern Egypt, while Bastet was in Lower or Northern Egypt. This reminds me of the two hemispheres of the brain. Building on my husband's hypothesis, as the temple being a place of healing via electromagnetic fields in the stones produced by lightning, I believe that a love frequency was being produced here, as the hieroglyph for love appears twice in the Central Pyramid Valley Temple. In addition, I found the hieroglyph for heart, or Ib, meaning affection, on the southern side of the eastern temple to the Central Pyramid. The heart's magnetic field, which is the strongest rhythmic field produced by the human body, not only envelops every cell of the body, but extends out in a toroidal shape in all directions into the space around us. The heart's magnetic field can be measured several feet away from the body by sensitive magnetometers, and research conducted suggests the heart's field is an important carrier of information. We have just entered the vestibule from the northern entrance, and we are looking at an identical entrance in the south wall at the far end, which leads to the southern entrance hall. In the foreground, we have a shaft in which Khafre's statue was found. These are examples of door pivots by Holzer. There are conical fittings here, and a hard stone would have been placed in the door jamb.
See, the floor is calcite crystal. Just imagine it in its full glory. Would have been polished and gleaming. Here we have a well where the statue of Khafre was found.
The famous diorite statue of Khafre was found in a shaft cut in the floor of the vestibule. Today, this shaft is fenced off and it is now a wishing well for tourists. The large doorway midway on the west wall gives access to the pillared hall. The missing masonry piece on the south wall is thought to be for a light aperture.
You can see housings for a door.
Yes. Let's walk. Slowly.
People make wishes here. You can see all the money that's been thrown into the wall.
Keith Hamilton's 3D rendering gives an idea of the temple layout. It is fairly symmetrical, with one doorway in the colonnade leading to the two-story magazine, while the other to the inclined passage. Here, the pink represents granite, yellow limestone, and white alabaster. The upper magazines are mostly clad in alabaster, as is the small chamber midway along the inclined passage. The ramp leading to the temple roof is also likewise mostly clad in alabaster. Light and ventilation slits are provided for the magazines in the small chamber, and maybe the white alabaster was chosen to help magnify what little illumination entered these spaces. This use of alabaster for certain areas is also noticeable in the Central Pyramid Temple. The long north-south orientated part of the hall contains a single colonnade of 6 granite pillars, while the east-west orientated part contains a double colonnade with 10 total granite pillars. Here, most of the architraves are intact, while only 2 survive in the north-south part. The good preservation of the alabaster pavement prevents us from knowing exactly how the pillars are seated.
See the second level of the temple. There's an incredibly unique feature here. I think it's just Geoffrey and I in the temple right now. It's incredibly peaceful. This appears also to be black granite, but it's not polished. Let's see, the red granite pillars. And it is believed that these grooves were to house statuary.
In Holscher's plate, we can see the location of 23 sockets, which vary in size and depth. Holscher cleared out the sand for the sockets, and he recovered 6 baskets full of statue fragments, mostly of alabaster. No sockets are found on the east wall of the north-south hall, but we have 9 statues facing east, and 7 each facing north and south. The base of the sockets, according to Holscher, was raw limestone, and it is likely that the statues and pillars were put into position, and then the alabaster paving was built upon them.
And this
This is a 3D rendering by Keith Hamilton of the magazine area. Where he's included the light apertures here. Unfortunately, this area is off limits to tourists, so we have very little photographic evidence of the features of this area.
the niche here. I see a two-wheeler drill would have housed a door, a hinge.
I'm from Gaza, Palestine.
This is a fine reconstruction done by Holscher. We're looking west along the south wall of the double colonnade, with statues occupying the floor sockets. After a fun day exploring the Giza Plateau, Geoffrey and I like to take our shoes off and walk around barefoot on the alabaster pavement of the temple and soak up the healing love frequency.
Sphinx.
There's a huge block of calcite crystal in here. Alright, I'll grab my flashlight. Let's get a closer look. Oh.
刚好跟你的金字塔拍了，等一下，等他们让他们走。
ايش هذا؟ هذا مكان ابو الهول.
خذي انا بعدين. هو في ايه هنا؟ انا اللي بعدين. اهدوا مية الناس. الطالب لما تعيش ما تعيش عشان يتولف على الزعيم.
This is all calcite crystal. I don't know if you can see it. I don't recall seeing this crystal on any diagrams. We are now in the inclined passage. You can see the apex of the central pyramid. To the right is the Valley Temple of the Central Pyramid. To the left is the Sphinx enclosure.
20 متر. هاي 20 متر. Look.
Here we have a well shaft. The Sphinx was cased in more modern times, Roman era. Its core is a natural geological formation made of bedrock. can still see there's standing water in the Valley Temple. The dog is lapping it up right now. You can still see the remnants of the mud brick enclosure. Some pottery.
Thank you for watching. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, pick up some merch, and stay tuned for more epic adventures from Ancient Odysseys. Never stop exploring.
You can hear the Moisum in the background. This concludes our expedition to the Giza Plateau. I'm Lex Levy, and this is Ancient Odysseys. Come explore ancient Egypt with us on our 2025 Landichem Ancient Alchemy and Ascension Tour.
This will be our most extensive tour yet, where we will explore Lower and Upper Egypt, beginning in Saqqara, where we will visit the Step Pyramid of Djoser, the Pyramid of Wanis, Pyramid of Teti, the Serapeum, and more. Next, we're off to Dashur to go inside the Red Pyramid. As well as the Bent Pyramid. We have special permission access to the Abu Sir Pyramid Complex. Then we have 2 days exploring the Giza Plateau. With private night access into the Great Pyramid. We fly to Upper Egypt to visit the Luxor and Karnak temples. travel to Dendera to visit the Temple of Hathor. Then Abydos, to visit the Temple of Seti I and the Osirian. We will journey on a relaxing Nile cruise to visit Kamambo, Aswan, Elephantine, and we finish in Abu Simbel. If you're interested in joining us, please send an email to contact@thelandofchem.com, subject line Egypt Tour 2025.
See you in Egypt.
Thank you for watching. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, pick up some merch, and stay tuned for more epic adventures from Ancient Odysseys. Never stop exploring.